Dear viewers, thank you for joining us. You're watching our weekly program, Talk to OBN on OBN Horn of Africa. In this edition, we'll be talking about BRICS affair. And to discuss this matter, I'm joining by Professor Lawrence Freeman. Professor, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
Well, how do you view the role of BRICS in the current global economic landscape?
It's very important. In fact, we've really seen something just short of a earthquake in 2024 regarding the BRICS. In January, we had Egypt, Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates, and Iran officially join the BRICS, which brought it to 9 nations. And recently, at the end of October in Kazan, Russia, we have now 13 partner members of the BRICS, which may be inducted into the BRICS next year. So the BRICS is essentially 22 nations now, and including in those 13 partners, you have Algeria, Nigeria, and Uganda. So the representation in Africa is very significant. And now you have an organization, the BRICS as an institution, which has almost 60% of the world population, plus a majority of countries producing wheat, coal, oil, and gas. So it's a really powerful institution. And its importance is that it represents a completely different paradigm than the rules-based order and Bretton Woods. The BRICS is not a military alliance. It exists as essentially an economic alliance committed to economic development. As President Putin said at the Kazan summit, we take responsibility for the future of the world, not just in words, but in deed. And the BRICS has a vision based on economic development, which is entirely different than what we see from the Bretton Woods and the rules-based order.
How do political relations among BRICS countries affect their collective decision-making, though?
Well, think about it. With the addition of Algeria and Nigeria to Ethiopia, Egypt, and South Africa, you now have almost half of the African population, and you have the major oil and gas producers. And this gives a very powerful impetus for the development of Africa. You have now, with the 13 partners joining the BRICS, you have a very sizable grouping internationally. That is only a fraction of the support. There are approximately 24 other nations that want to join the BRICS. So the global South, which is the term for this area, this portion of the world, led by the BRICS, now is moving ahead to push for massive economic development. Putin called for at the meeting a new investment platform, and President Lula has called for expansion of the new development bank, which is very small, relatively speaking, but it has to expand, because the needs of investment in infrastructure in Africa and other nations of the global South is massive, much more than any figure you read in any newspaper. We have to electrify Africa. We have to build 100,000 kilometers of railroad in Africa. We have to develop all parts of Asia and Latin America. So the demands and the needs of the people of the world is very large. The Bretton Woods system has no intention of developing these countries. And the rules-based order is under severe fatigue and collapse right now. So the BRICS is now a center stage. The West will dismiss the BRICS, but in reality, they're very much afraid of it. They want to stop it. They want to suppress it. And the BRICS, of course, is led by China and Russia. And China has a great record of economic development. And they're leading the BRICS in one sense, and they're leading the global South. So this is 2024 is a banner year for the BRICS and for the global South, but much, much more has to be done in terms of investment.
Well, what kind of initiative has been undertaken by a BRICS member that promotes global development? Any initiative that has been undertaken by BRICS?
Well, my understanding, I don't have the details in front of me, is that over the last 5 or 6 years, there has been about 100 infrastructure projects that have been funded by the New Development Bank. The New Development Bank, as I said, I think is fairly small in terms of its capitalization and plans on expanding that. They also want to create a new financial architecture so that the world will not be beholden to this bankrupt financial system of the West. They are also now working on a new payment system. So again, they're not beholden to the Western payment system, but they can pay each other and trade with each other in local currencies. So the projects, the developments and the impetus right now is at a takeoff point. And I think we can expect tremendous growth and additional membership in the BRICS over the years ahead, which the West is very much upset about and will try to stifle if they can.
Well, how about swapping currencies among the members? Is that effective, or is that?
Well, that's what that's what I mentioned. They've already started to do that, and they want to expand that because right now you have to go through what's the so-called SWIFT system of currency transactions on the global scale. And as you probably know, the African nation currencies are not really acceptable at all on exchange on the international scale. So there's going to be more trading in local currencies, local African currencies for yuan in China or other local Asian currencies. But the needs of the global South are huge. And as we see in Africa, the needs are huge. I mean, we have over approximately 600 million people without electricity. And even the remaining amount, you have several hundred million people who don't have continuous electricity. Most countries have 50% or less. The Ethiopians have made a contribution through the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam of 5,150 megawatts. But a lot more is needed to electrify Africa. And without electrification of Africa, you will never have industrialization, and you will never eliminate poverty and hunger. The goals of the BRICS, their vision, is development. That's their thought process. That's their intent. That's their mindset. And this is a complete difference from the rest of the world, from the rest of the Western-controlled financial and political system. So you have two competing systems. The West is primarily a military financial system to control and prevent the development of nations, and the BRICS is a non-military economic alliance to promote development and raise the standard of living of the majority of the world's people. As I say, almost 60% of the world people population are represented in the BRICS and their partners right now.
Would the formation of BRICS change the existing world order? Do you think that would this BRICS properly counter the existing unipolar order?
Well, I think it can. First of all, the unipolar world is over. There is a multipolar world, and it's undeniable. It can't be reversed, and it's not going to be reversed. So it is multipolar right now. The Western countries, Europe and the United States, are going to try to control this multipolar world. They're going to try to impose on it the rules-based order. This was the remarks at a conference I attended in Beijing by the Western delegate from Germany. and this is what he said we're going to try to do. They're going to try to control and suppress the development of the BRICS, including the leadership from China. But it's not going to work. If the Western system is being is frail at this point, people may not know this, but the Western system is filled with debt and speculative debt. I mean, the United States itself has almost as much debt as it has gross domestic product, about $35 trillion. So the whole U.S. economy has been resting upon consumer debt, people's personal credit cards. German economy is collapsing. The Italian economy has not moved forward. And despite all the attempts to destroy Russia, the Russian economy still exists. And the Chinese economy, even though it's going through some ups and downs, is still one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So the multipolar world is here to stay. The question is, how will the West deal with it? Will it try to destroy it? Will it dismiss it? Or could it embrace it? Why the BRICS, by the way, is open to membership from the Western nations. We could have a whole different conception of world politics, where sovereign nations unite and join together in the common shared interest of development, of raising the standard of living of these people. We could change the world, but the West has to accept the fact that it's a failed system. It has failed to develop the world in the last 80 years since World War II that it's been in control. And in Africa, it's been a disaster. No nation in Africa has developed with the help of the West. And that's why China has been more successful, and other countries have been more successful. So now we're at a stage of development where the BRICS is here to stay. The global South is a reality. The West is weakened and is supporting two failed wars in the Middle East and Ukraine. So this is the moment for leaders of the global South and leaders, in particular, as I know, leaders in Africa, to step forward and say, we are going to assert our view of the world, which is one based on development. And we are going to proceed to finance the infrastructure projects that are necessary to end the poverty and hunger that exist in portions of the global South. So I see this as a great opportunity. And I think the summit meeting in Russia indicates that the BRIC countries intend to move forward, and they should be supported, and the West should support them if they were thinking clearly. Biden has not, and I don't really think Trump will either. But we can work to change that and get sovereign nations cooperating for the common development of mankind. That's what I think we should fight for.
Well, Ethiopia is an anchor nation in the Horn of Africa and beyond. And in the meantime, Ethiopia is a member of the BRICS. What implication does this have in Ethiopia's national economy?
Well, Ethiopia, if they think through properly what the potentials are, which I think some people have, is as a member of the BRICS, and now as one of 5 countries working with the BRICS, with the BRIC partners, Uganda, Nigeria, and Algeria joining. So that's actually 6 countries in Africa that really dominate the continent. The Ethiopian economy, the Nigerian economy, the South African economy, population base, Egypt's population, Ethiopia's population, Nigeria, 225 million. So these countries of the BRICS really present a very positive potential because of their size, population, because of their economies, because of their locations, Egypt and Algeria in the north. So we really could move forward. The IMF and the World Bank are going to do everything they can to prevent this. They don't want to lose control of Africa. They have done nothing really to help develop Africa. There's not been one development project from the West. There's now one on the table, the Libido Corridor, which is dubious in how it's going to be financed and it's unclear when it will ever be completed. But that is the only single significant infrastructure project from the West since the death of Kennedy. Compare that to the hundreds and billions of dollars worth of projects coming from China and other countries. So the West doesn't want to lose control of the mineral resources of Africa. But with now potentially 6 members of the BRICS on the African continent, this can change. And Ethiopia, despite its current problems, it actually established a very positive paradigm by funding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is the biggest injection of new energy sources into the continent. Now, Egypt is now completing a deal with Russia, Rostom, for 4 nuclear power plants, which the only other power plant on the continent is South Africa. So now we have another country with nuclear power. We have many other countries seeking nuclear power. So the potential for Africa as a major force in the BRICS, 6 countries, is good. But we have to get the leaders of these countries and the people thinking clearly about development. How do we maximize our development? What are the needs of infrastructure? What are the needs of industrialization? What are the needs of irrigation for agriculture? All these things have to be thought through with an aggressive, positive program that the BRICS nations put forward, and that the 6 nations of the BRICS in Africa will take the leadership on making sure that infrastructure and development takes place on the continent. So the potential is enormous. The question is, how well do the leaders understand physical economy the way I do, and how will they be susceptible to being manipulated and controlled by the IMF, World Bank, Bretton Woods institutions?
Well. You've been heard criticizing the U.S. policy that is being imposed on Africa and Global South. How do you see the U.S. policy and the formation of BRICS?
From my standpoint, or from what the U.S. government says?
Yes, about the foreign policy of the United States and formation of BRICS. How far would the imposition of the policy affect the existence of BRICS?
You have to consider that at the BRICS summit in January, when 4 countries were added, Ethiopia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and Iran, the United States establishment dismissed it. Oh, this is not important. They're very small. They don't have a very large bank lending capability. So they dismissed it. I went to some lectures in Washington at what I call the unthink tanks, and they were unaware of the importance of this meeting in January. When we went into the meeting in Kazan, Russia, at the end of October, the West said, oh, this isn't important. This is just Russia trying to gather around itself its allies so that they can present a strong face in the collapse of their country due to the Ukraine-U.S. war, Ukraine-Russia-U.S. war. So this is just the typical arrogant, dismissive attitude of the West. They refuse, ideologically, mentally, they refuse to accept the new reality. You could call it either denial or dementia, but they refuse to accept what is in front of their eyes. The BRICS is expanding. The BRICS exist. The BRICS is now the leadership of the Global South. The Global South represents almost 60% of the world's population. They don't want to accept this reality. So we saw in the Biden administration, as we saw in the Obama administration and the first Trump administration, and now we're going into the second Trump administration, there is no awareness, recognition of the significance of the BRICS, and there's no understanding that this is the future of the globe. If you've got the majority of the world's population moving in one direction, a direction of development, a paradigm that is set to eliminate poverty and hunger. And the West is still holding on to its political and financial control of their financial markets. They are going to oppose it until and unless they actually have a enlightening moment and they realize they can't win. They can't defeat the BRICS and they can't defeat the global South. They can slow it down and they can try to disrupt it. That is the rules-based order. And they can try to manipulate it, which they're already doing throughout most of these countries through the IMF, World Bank. But they can't stop it. The genie is out of the bottle. It can't be put in. The question is the West still suffering from denial or dementia that they can't see the potential of working with the BRICS, joining the BRICS for the future development of mankind? That's the question we're going to face in 2025.
What are the major bottlenecks that are considered as a hurdle for BRICS not to go forward as it's expected? Maybe some anticipated hurdles.
Well, the major problem that the BRICS has right now is they don't have enough capitalization of the new development bank, which is the BRICS Bank. So they have to, and this was discussed at the Kazan summit by all the major countries there. They have to find a way to improve and expand their investments because they're not able to finance enough projects, enough infrastructure projects around the world. I mean, in Africa alone, I mean, you need $250 billion a year in infrastructure to make sure the African continent becomes industrialized, the African nations are industrialized. So the BRICS Bank is too small. And that's something they have to figure out how they're going to expand it. They're also not challenging NATO because they're not a military alliance. But the fact that they're proceeding on economic development, which the rules-based order has never supported for the global South, they're going to come into confrontations. I think the IMF World Bank is going to try to pick off countries, try to manipulate them. I think Ethiopia is on a rocky course right now because it's surrendered its currency to control by the market forces, which I'm not sure is going to really work out for them. Egypt's economy is having some problems. Nigeria's economy is suffering, has never really reached its potential. And many of these countries have enormous capability and have resources, but they've not been able to fully utilize them. China is a very unique and interesting member of the BRICS because they have it's not in the future. They have eliminated poverty in Africa, in China. They brought 750 million people out of poverty. So they have proved that if we invest properly in infrastructure and development, we can eliminate poverty, which Africa is the biggest sufferer of poverty in the world. So the BRICS represents not that you have to follow any particular model, but it shows you what can be done. And this is going to be opposed, and it already is, by the fact the United States will not support the BRICS and will not join the BRICS and continues to undermine the leadership of the BRICS, shows you that there's going to be a battle. There's going to be a fight. And the question is, how well do African and not African, but all global leaders of the global South understand, one, physical economy. What is necessary to achieve real physical growth? Two, do they understand the geopolitical mentality of the zero-sum game that dominates the rules-based order? Those are two things I know very well, and I hope the leaders of the global South also understand these well, because they're going to need to if they're going to move forward. But the potential is there.
Okay, Professor Lawrence Freeman, thank you for your expertise and brief analysis on BRICS affair. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. Look forward to talking with you again.
David Ross, thank you for watching. This brings you the end of our edition for today. See you next time with another major issues of this in Africa and around the world. Bye-bye. Take care.